Chris and I had a ritual. Every Saturday, rain or shine, we'd hit the jogging track that snaked through the old, hilly forest on the edge of town. It wasn't a manicured park path. It was a proper trail, roots and rocks underfoot, the air thick with the smell of pine and damp earth. About halfway through our usual 5-mile loop, nestled deep in a cluster of ancient oaks, was the Treehouse. It wasn't much, just a rickety platform nailed precariously to a few thick branches, a crude ladder hanging down, and a patched-up tarp serving as a roof. It looked like something a couple of kids had thrown together decades ago and then forgotten. We'd always just jogged past it, barely giving it a second glance. It was part of the scenery, a familiar landmark on our routine. For years, it was just there. A silent, decaying sentinel in the woods. We joke about it sometimes, wondering what kind of adventures the kids who built it had, or if it was haunted by squirrels. It was a comforting constant, a signpost in our otherwise predictable weekend routine. The forest itself was a place of peace for us, a green sanctuary away from the hum of the city. We knew every turn, every dip, every rise. We knew the old, gnarled oak with the lightning scar, the patch of wild berries, the stream that always seemed to gurgle a little louder after rain. And we knew the Treehouse. Then, one Saturday, something was off. It wasn't obvious, not at first. We were halfway up the steepest incline, our lungs burning, when Chris, who was a few paces ahead, suddenly slowed. "Hey, Ben," he puffed, pointing vaguely towards the Treehouse, which was just coming into view through the thinning canopy. "Does that look different to you?" I squinted, trying to catch my breath. From a distance, it looked the same. Same sagging platform, same tattered tarp. Different how? I asked, wiping sweat from my eyes. "I don't know," he said, shaking his head. "Just different." We jogged closer, and as we rounded the bend, I saw it too. A faint, almost imperceptible shimmer near the opening of the Treehouse, like heat haze, but it was a cool morning. And then, a smell. Not the usual damp earth and pine, but something metallic, almost sterile, mixed with a faint, cloying sweetness. It was unsettling, out of place in the natural world. We stopped jogging, our usual rhythm broken. The air around the Treehouse felt heavy, charged with an unspoken tension. Chris, always the more cautious one, hesitated. "Maybe we should just keep going," he mumbled, glancing back at the familiar path. But curiosity, a dark, insistent pull, was stronger. I found myself walking towards the base of the tree, drawn by that strange, metallic scent. The crude ladder, usually swaying gently in the breeze, was still, almost rigid. As I got closer, I noticed something else. A faint, dark stain on one of the wooden planks leading up to the platform. It looked like dried mud, but it had an odd, almost greasy sheen to it. And the smell was stronger here, a sickly sweet odor that made my stomach churn. "What is that smell?" Chris asked, his voice barely a whisper, as he cautiously approached. I shook my head, my eyes fixed on the stain. It wasn't mud. It was too dark, too viscous. My heart started to pound, a frantic drum against my ribs. We looked at each other, a silent agreement passing between us. We had to see. Slowly, carefully, I began to climb the rickety ladder. Each rung groaned under my weight, and I could feel splinters digging into my palms. The air grew colder as I ascended, despite the rising sun. When my head cleared the platform, I paused, taking a deep, shaky breath. The interior was dim, the tarp roof casting long, distorted shadows. My eyes adjusted, and then I saw it. Not a ghost, not a monster. Something far, far worse. The floor of the Treehouse was covered in a thick, dark substance, like congealed blood, but it wasn't blood. It was a sticky, viscous residue, smeared across the rough-hewn planks. And in the center, a collection of objects. Not toys, not forgotten treasures. These were tools. Surgical tools. Rusted scalpels, clamps, a bone saw, all laid out with a chilling precision. And beside them, a few empty, clear plastic bags, the kind used for medical waste, and a roll of industrial-strength duct tape. The air was thick with that cloying, sweet smell, now overwhelming, and I realized what it was: formaldehyde. And something else, something deeply, sickeningly organic. My mind reeled, struggling to process the impossible scene before me. This wasn't a child's hideaway. This was a workspace. A place where something unspeakable had been done. A cold dread, far more potent than any ghost story, washed over me. My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt a wave of nausea. I backed away slowly, my eyes still fixed on the horrifying tableau, my foot slipping on the viscous residue. I nearly fell, catching myself on the flimsy railing. Below me, Chris was calling my name, his voice laced with concern. "Ben, what is it? What do you see?" I couldn't answer. My tongue felt thick, useless. I scrambled down the ladder, my hands burning, my legs trembling. When my feet hit the ground, I stumbled, almost collapsing. Chris grabbed my arm, his face etched with worry. "Ben, what happened? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," I choked out, pointing a shaking finger at the treehouse. "Much, much worse." Chris, seeing the genuine terror in my eyes, didn't hesitate. He climbed the ladder, his movements more agile than mine. I watched him, my heart pounding, waiting for his reaction. A few seconds later, I heard a sharp intake of breath, followed by a guttural sound of disgust. He descended quickly, his face ashen, his eyes wide with a horror that mirrored my own. "Oh my God," he whispered, his voice barely audible. What is that?" We stood there, rooted to the spot, staring at the innocent-looking treehouse that now seemed to radiate an aura of unspeakable evil. The metallic sweet smell hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of what lay within. We didn't need to say anything. The unspoken question hung between us, who would do something like this? And why? The forest, once our sanctuary, now felt tainted, a silent witness to a grotesque secret. We turned and ran, not jogging, but sprinting, our lungs burning, our legs aching, not stopping until we burst out of the tree line and onto the familiar asphalt of the road. The mundane sounds of traffic, the distant hum of the city, had never sounded so comforting. We drove in silence, the image of the treehouse and its horrifying contents burned into our minds. We knew with a chilling certainty that our Saturday ritual, our peaceful escape, was over. The forest had revealed its true nature, and it was far more terrifying than any ghost. We never spoke about it to anyone. Who would believe us? What could we even say? That we found a makeshift operating theater in a treehouse in the woods. We tried to go back to our lives, to our jobs, to our routines. But the forest, once a place of peace, was now a place of dread. Every rustle of leaves, every shadow, every distant sound brought back the image of that treehouse. We stopped jogging that route. We found a new gym, a new routine, anything to avoid that part of the woods. But the memory, the feeling of what we saw, it clung to us like that cloying, sweet smell. Months passed. The image of the surgical tools, the viscous residue, the overwhelming scent of formaldehyde, it never faded. We'd occasionally see news reports about missing persons, always from nearby towns, always with vague descriptions. We'd look at each other, a silent, knowing dread passing between us. We never said anything, never connected the dots out loud. We couldn't. The implications were too horrific. We were just two ordinary guys who went for a jog and stumbled upon something that shattered our perception of the world. We learned to live with it, or rather, to live around it. The secret was ours, a heavy, suffocating burden. We were witnesses, and that was a kind of haunting all its own. Then, about a year after that day, I was at a local diner, grabbing a coffee. The TV in the corner was playing a local news report. They were talking about a cold case, a series of disappearances from years ago, finally solved. They showed a picture of the perpetrator, an older man, a recluse who lived on the outskirts of town, known for his eccentricities. He was a former veterinarian, they said, who had lost his license years ago due to unethical practices. They showed a picture of his property, a small, isolated cabin. And in the background, almost hidden by the trees, I saw it. A faint, familiar outline. A rickety platform nailed precariously to a few thick branches. A crude ladder hanging down. The treehouse. Our treehouse. It wasn't abandoned. It was his. And the horrible secret we found wasn't a one-time event. It was his routine. And we had been jogging past it, all those years, completely oblivious. The coffee cup slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor. The sound echoed in the sudden, profound silence of my own personal horror. The forest hadn't been a silent witness. It had been his accomplice. And we, unknowingly, had been jogging through his hunting grounds.